podcast. I am joined in studio today with my new friend, Vino Paul. Vino, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. It's surreal. So thank you so much for having me.
That was very cool.
Super blessed.
This is part of the beginning of our 2026 national tour where we're hitting 6 different cities all across America. Charlotte is our first city that we're hitting. And I got connected with you actually through, at first it began through a Instagram message from one of our friends, Andrew Varga.
Yes. Yeah.
Out from Hickory,
Yes.
who you've known for a long time.
Yeah, we've known for a long minute. Yep.
Nice.
Awesome guy. Awesome family line. The bloodline is good. So yeah, when you hear Vargas, or certain bloodlines, you're like, those are good people. So yeah.
There's that
super
old school
close friends.
Romanian,
Yes, I know. You can't get away from them.
Yeah, and then also Chris Oniga, who's been a good friend of mine for a long time. I called him and I was like, hey, Andrew recommended me, to talk to Vino Paul. Do you know him? And Chris said, yeah, run. Like, don't even talk. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. Watch that guy, He's got a crazy past, man. You got to be careful, man. No,
he told me that
the
Lord's done a lot in your life.
Oh, man.
Solid guy. And he's like, yeah, dude, definitely reach out to him. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you guys for the shout out, So.
Yeah, no, it's good to be able to sit down and, start this conversation. So normally I introduce a guest, and I tell a little bit about their background and so on. This is our first time meeting today.
This is our first time meeting, yes.
Which is great because I get to find out about your story with our listeners. Yeah. But essentially, from what from the little bit that I do know, you were, born in Romania, immigrated here at 2 years old, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you grew up in a Romanian church.
I did.
Then from there, things took a turn. So, tell me, and share with our listeners, please, your testimony, essentially.
Yeah. So, you're right. 2 years I came to the States. When I think about how all that came to be, it just puts when you hear about people that sacrifice a lot. And my dad, when he left Romania, he left without us. So he got a call in the middle of the night. Was like, hey, you're gonna get a call. You got to be on this train in 4 hours. Kiss your wife goodbye. Blah blah blah. And he got that call, and he was able to get a job and work on machinery outside of Romania. And then from there, he just kind of ran and went to an embassy, got paperwork, did this until he made it to the States. And it took 2 years.
Oh, wow.
2 years for us to see him, for him to send and bring us back. So when you think about sacrifices, and then you're like, because we have, as a Romanian, you have that grit, it's embedded in our DNA. And I think that's that's one of those things where thank you for giving us that,
it's our heritage.
It is. And it's, it's truly a blessing to have parents like that, where you can see their sacrifice and you're like, man, they did not mess around,
So your dad just gets this phone call and leaves to go take work in another country?
Yep.
This is still during communism.
Yes. Yep. Into another country. He had a friend that worked for they worked on big engines, and he was able to get him a job there. And one of their contracts was, I think, in Hungary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he got that call and he kissed my mom goodbye. He's like, Viorica, nu știu, I don't know when I'm going to see you. I'm going to send money, blah, blah, blah. And she was pregnant with me. My sister, 4 years old, so it was, yeah.
No, that's wild because so he left. He didn't know how long the contract would be.
Did not know how long it would take, and he just went with the Lord. The Lord just opened up doors where he went and met the right people, did the right paperwork, got to go here, asylum here, get this until he was on a plane and came to Michigan, Detroit.
That's wild.
And then he got a place, got a job, got a place, sent money over to my mom, brought us. My mom tells the story when she first came here, she hated the States.
Really?
Oh, yeah. She didn't know the language. She didn't, you know what I mean? God bless her. Now just knowing her, how I know her now, it's funny, But, the Lord, my mom's, man, she's something else. She's a very faithful, very devout, faithful, praying mom that loves the Lord,
awesome.
That loves the Lord.
How old was your dad when he left the country and then came to the States, roughly?
Oh, how old was it? If I would say, I think he was in his late 20s.
Late 20s?
Yeah. Brother, yeah.
You probably have the same feelings that I have.
Yeah.
Whenever you look at young men in their late 20s today and you think about your dad,
Yeah,
and you're like,
yeah,
dude,
you're
he
like-
just left his family, his
Yeah.
pregnant wife, had no idea where
Yeah.
this was going to go. And today, people are like, I don't like that restaurant, or, my
Oh
travel
my
was
goodness.
difficult.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah,
You're
it's-
like, because men, it's like men have not been men, And I'm
Yes.
like, they're like afraid to get dirty. They're afraid of, it's like, yo, make a decision,
Yes.
Let's
They're so indecisive.
Oh my goodness, dude, what do you want to do? It's like, oh, brother, But yeah, it's different times, man. Eddie, it's
so
different
is.
times.
It so is. Because you look at guys in their 20s and they're like,
Yeah.
well, I have to know all the conclusions of my decisions
Sure.
before I begin them.
Yeah.
Like I need to know all of the consequences, all the ramifications.
yeah,
How is everything
yeah.
going to work out?
Yeah.
And only if it's all good, then I'll begin.
Got to do that checklist, right? Boom, boom. Yep.
And then you look at like our parents' generation,
Yeah.
and they're like, I don't know if I'm gonna die or not. I don't know if I'll see you in
Yeah.
5 months or in 5
Yeah.
years. Go with God.
Go with God, yeah,
It
yeah.
just-
It's like, how do they do it? They don't know how they did it. They just did it. You know what I mean? That's that sheer like perseverance. It's just like when you read through the Bible, like how many times did Jesus say, "Hey, don't worry about it.
Right.
When you're gonna face this, don't worry about it. When you're gonna be persecuted, don't worry about it." You know what I mean? I was just reading out of 2 Corinthians where he talks about like when you're cast down, don't worry about it because it will not destroy you. You know what I mean? So man, that's God's good.
Yeah.
God's good, and thank God for faithful parents that was like, we're gonna do it.
So your dad
Oftentimes, I
left-
think we base our decision, but because sometimes, like, right, we I'm sure you've been making some very odd decisions that
Yeah.
normally you wouldn't make. You know what I mean?
No.
God's got you in a season where He's doing a lot of things for you. I can attest to that myself. It's like, how are we doing it? I don't know, but we're doing it with the Lord.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's funny because like even with with us moving out to Tennessee
Yeah.
and everything else that's associated with that, it's like, man, I don't fully understand,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like my goal is I'm just gonna be faithful to what I believe God is telling me
Yeah.
to do. Like one day, whenever it is that I pass away, I have 2 sons. And I want, no matter what, I want them to know in their heart of hearts
Yeah.
that their dad was a man who followed his convictions
That's it.
regardless of the
Yes.
outcome, you know?
Yep.
And it's like, that's what I'm going to be known for.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the results
Yeah,
always,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that I followed God faithfully. That's it.
Amen.
That's what I want to be known for, you know?
Amen to that.
And
What more do you want, right?
what-
To your name, right?
what more could you
Good and
wish for?
faithful servant. That's it.
oh man, and like we look at like our parents and like that grit you're talking about.
Yes.
Like, dude, I want to have that grit.
Yes.
Can you imagine shrinking back from something you believe God is calling you to do because you're scared?
Yeah.
You talk about regret.
Yeah.
That's not a regret I'm gonna have.
No,
Nope.
no.
I'll have other
I'm
ones.
with you that the one thing people see like things that we've done in our household and they're like, aren't you scared? I'm like, yeah, it's scary, but the one thing I don't want to live with regret.
Right.
I'm gonna make that decision, and it's like if God is for us, man, who can be against
Yeah.
us? It's gonna be okay, right? If the birds don't worry, if the one hair falls from your head and He knows, man,
Yeah.
come on, how valuable are you? Like, where do you see yourself in God's eyes? I know where I see myself, man. God's been too good to me, so I'm gonna keep trucking, keep trucking forward.
Same. So your dad comes to the States.
Yeah.
He's here. It was
Yeah.
a 2-year journey.
2-year journey.
Detroit? Why Detroit? Did you guys have people in Detroit?
Well, it became kind of like the melting pot for people that were coming, right?
Yeah,
A strong Pentecostal community began there. And
What year was this?
that was in the late 70s.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
It's just like early.
Yeah.
The Romanians in America.
Yeah. Yeah. Before the 80s. Yes, sir. Yep. So, a small community started forming there, and then people just started coming, right? And then from there, naturally, they kind of branched out. Chicago was another major place, major part in that certain movement. And, we came, and, my mom, she comes from 12. So that was back then, right? Everybody was trying to get to the States.
Right.
So we sponsored like her family members. Like I always had cousins on the summers that came over. It was cool. I enjoyed having cousins because I'm a boy. We played outside,
Yeah.
rode bikes. But we got injured, we fell. That's what we did. So they brought a lot of people. My dad and mom, they were a key factor in bringing a lot of people that have been wanting to get to the States. So,
Super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then-
we always had prayer meeting too. And that was another
Nice.
thing. Like if you knew Sora Viorica and Fratele Mishu, Saturday nights, it was prayer, man, and it was fired up. And
So
that's
you
what I grew
grew
up.
falling asleep on chairs and stuff as a
Falling
little
asleep on
kid.
chairs, giving my room to people, you know what I mean? Waking up Sunday morning, and I'm like, who's this guy? Who's that guy? They're still over. They're coming to church with us. Okay, great. You know, crammed in the car, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, that was it, man. That was it, you know, lack of sleep, lack of attention, you know. But that's, you know, they were coming from everywhere. And it's just, man, a movement. There was a big movement that began in our basement, and people were coming, and I was seeing deliverances. I was seeing baptisms. I was, you know what I mean? We were not really popular with our neighbors because, you know, our house, you can do this and touch the house next door.
Right.
So, oh my goodness.
46 cars up and down the street.
I know. I'm like, I don't even know where I look now on Google Maps, like where I live. I'm like, where did people park when they came over, you know? Jeez, it's crazy. But yeah, that, you know, I think about that. I'm like, no wonder like all my neighbors always wanted to fight me because they, you know, they were always like, you holy roller, you know what I mean? It's, okay, you know, I am what I am. But yeah, that's what I grew up in. I grew up in that, and it continued, you know. As I got older, you know, the Lord moved us. Did some work with, I was telling you earlier, you know, we moved to Idaho for about 9 months. Lord brought us there. My mom and my dad, you know, my mom was a spiritual mother to so many.
Yeah.
And God used my family there, and then was like, okay, what do we do now, you know? And I was telling this story to a friend of mine, and I remember driving in the U-Haul with my dad and my mom, excuse me, my mom was driving the other car, and they were talking back and forth through the walkie-talkie. And we got to a pivotal point where it was go to Chicago or go to Michigan, right?
Oh,
with
wow.
all our stuff. And my dad's like, Viorica, what are we doing? Chifa Jam. She's like, I don't know. Chifa, we go. She's like, dude, I got Michigan, Chicago. And I'm
On
like,
the road?
On the road, man. On the road, you know? Like, thinking back now, who does that? My parents, you know?
So they took off with all their stuff in the car. They weren't
Everything.
sure where they were headed.
Weren't sure where they were
That's
heading.
wild.
Where are we going, man? And I remember that turn, Michigan, you know, back to Michigan. So we went back to Michigan and, you know, started again. Grew up, you know, there in Dearborn Heights.
That's
and,
crazy. What church
yeah.
did you guys go to out there?
We went to Party. So,
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, went to Party. Yep. Went to Party, and then as I got older, right, you had the Middle Belt movement church over there, so I would go hang out with those guys on the evenings, and that's that was my upbringing.
That's wild, man.
Yep. And you know,
How old were you when you guys came back from Idaho?
I was 12, 13.
Okay,
right
perfect,
around there.
yeah.
Yep, I was right around there.
And so then how much longer did you guys stay in
Michigan, we stayed until the 90s, middle 90s, and then my parents came in to visit North Carolina, and my mom, my aunt lived here, and my mom and dad just fell in love with it, you know.
Oh, wow.
Klima, my dad always thought, the climate, klima. Oh. You know, it's, you know, my mom's like,
clean
it
air.
reminds me of the old country, you know.
Romania,
Yeah, exactly, right? You know what I mean? You drive, you see farms and cows and
the Amish?
yeah.
Karutse.
Yeah, they loved it. And they're like, we're gonna move. And at that time, I just finished high school. I was going into college, and I was just like, I don't think I'm ready to move, you know? I wish I would have moved. But I didn't. I stayed behind, and that's when it was like, you know, the prodigal son. That's when.
Just after high school.
That's just out of high school. Yep, just out of high school. I was a good kid in high school. You know, I was a good kid in high school. But it was just out of high school. I just, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I always think of this analogy where if you open up a faucet and you don't have to drip a lot of water, you just drip a little bit and you put a cup under there. That was sin, right? It doesn't look a lot, but if you leave and come back and you look in the cup after some time, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, that gradual
drift, and that's what it was. It was a slow. I don't know if you remember, Casting Crowns wrote a song, "Slow to Fade to Gray."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
Casting Crowns is such a great band, man.
I know, man. You know, you got some girls like, "Who's Casting Crowns?" You know.
They don't know good music
Man,
anymore.
I know.
Dude.
Come on, you know. So,
Especially the Richard Mullins and stuff. Like, it's like, you know,
gosh, don't even get me on Richard now. Someone's gonna be like, yeah, Richard Mullins. Yeah, man.
That's funny.
But
man.
so I stayed back, and little by little, you know, my heart just started, you know. I never, you know, looking back now and having kids, it was one of those things where I really, you know, you see religion, you see the church, you go to church, you participate, but man, if your heart's not where it needs to be,
Yeah.
and if it's not a relationship, And that's the thing, like, you know, as I became a parent, you know, me and Simona, my wife, you know, one thing we sat down, we're like, we're going to teach our children relationship, you know, relationship. Religion will kill you. Relationship, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we have a generation where they don't know if they're going to heaven because they are constantly like, they don't know if they're saved. And I'm like, who wants to live like that? You know, what a heartache to think that, oh man, I don't know the difference between conviction and condemnation, you know? And it's relationship. When you start having a relationship with the Lord, and it took me a long time, you know, me coming back to the Lord. And my wife, you know, my wife was, God bless her, you know. It's like when you put our rap sheets together and you see mine and you see Simona's, it's like nothing. And then, you know, mine's like, you know, hits the ground and keeps going, you know. I'm like, Lord, how did you give me a wife that's such a blessing, man? Like, what does she see in me, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's it's something, man.
Yeah.
It's something.
Flavor.
Yeah, it is. It's a beautiful thing. But yeah, I just started hanging out with the wrong group, started doing things that I shouldn't be doing, and lo and
So
behold,
is that where the drift began?
That's where
just the wrong friends.
it was the wrong friends, and there for a while I like completely like disconnected from anybody from church. You know what I mean?
So how did you remain if your parents moved? You're what, 18, 17, 18 at the time?
I was working.
Where were you living?
I got an apartment. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So at 18, you were out on your own.
18, I was out on my own. I got an apartment, did that for a year. I started getting into the electrical trade and started making some decent money. And then I bought a home. I bought my first home when I was 19. But back then, you know, you could buy a decent home for like $40,000, $50,000, you know. It wasn't, I remember that, it wasn't in the best neighborhood, but it wasn't in the worst neighborhood, you know.
Yeah, I got you.
And I became
Great
the guy
start
where
home.
everybody would just, you know, where you go, Vinos, you know. So that's how it became. And you know, I really didn't date Romanian women. I dated, you know, American women growing up, and just, man, just your heart just calluses, you know. It just calluses, and if you're not stable, and if you don't have that right walk, like things can turn really nasty quick, and they turn nasty quick. I caught a charge. I did some federal time. It was
Really? What was the charge for, if you don't mind me asking?
it was a conspiracy. It was a drug charge. Yeah, it was a conspiracy to possess with the intent to distribute. Yeah, and yeah, you know, with that conspiracy charge, you don't even have to have nothing on you. If you're involved and you know, that's it.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. A conspiracy charge. Yeah, they don't have to find nothing on you.
How old were you when
if
that
your
happened?
name just gets in? I was early 20s.
Oh, wow.
Early 20s.
Talk
yeah.
about the right time to screw up your whole life,
Yes,
man.
early
You know?
20s. Yep. So when I say I'm the prodigal, you know, I was in the thing, looking at the pigs, you know, like, you know, wondering, how did I get here? And I remember, man, God is so faithful that even in those seasons, even in that time, he would still send his elect few. And I remember this guy that was next to me. I did my time in a prison camp, and he was in the room next to me. And he was an older black gentleman.
What is a prison camp?
It's where you spend, where you do the remaining of whatever you get sentenced, right? And if it's a non-violent crime, for your first offense, generally they'll put you in like you spend time at a camp. The only thing in there is just chain link fence. But we had a gym, we had a movie theater, we had, you know what I mean? We had,
see.
yeah. So the only thing that stunk is that it was in Duluth, Minnesota. It was freezing, you know, winters came.
Wow.
It was, you know, you didn't need a refrigerator, you just put your drink outside the window, you know. But but I met some really, really, really interesting people there, you know.
So you had a guy next door to you.
I had a guy, a Christian black man, older man, and he looked at me one day. He says, "Vino, God's not done with you." And I was like, I don't know.
You're like 19, 20 at this time.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I feel like, you know. He's like, "You're gonna have a testimony." And I was like, man, I hope so. And all right.
You're good because you grew up knowing all of this. You grew up hearing about Jesus.
like-
you grew up in the church. This isn't brand new to you.
No, you know, it was, you know,
Why does that, because this is years ago.
Years ago.
So why does this still move you today? Because I see that it's moving you.
Yeah, man, because it's a part of me, you know? It's a part of me, and I know there's teenagers out there, they're not doing time, but I feel like they're in this cycle where they may not be incarcerated, but I think they're incarcerated here and here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, you don't have to do time to jeopardize your salvation, you know? You don't have to do time to be on the outs with the Lord, you know? That's just, that was what God had to use to get my attention, you know?
Wow.
And it definitely shaped me who I am. It definitely gives me a love for, you know, those that are, you know, hate the sin, love the sinner,
Right,
you know?
right.
It definitely, you know, I see people in a different light, you know? I feel like everybody deserves a second chance.
Yeah.
You know?
What are some, because you've been around people your whole life. You're a people person, clearly, you know, and then also you do ministry, you've been in church. What are some prisons that you think that people imprison themselves in, or that the enemy, you know, imprisons people in, and people buy into it, where, okay, maybe they're not incarcerated, you know, in the physical, but mentally they're stuck in these places.
Yeah.
What are some
well,
of
we
those?
spoke about this earlier, is like, they feel like they're constantly earning their salvation, earning their grace. They're constantly trying to measure up, you know? They don't know if they're saved. They don't know, you know, they make one fall. They're like, oh man, that's it. You know, my salvation is doomed, you know? And they don't understand conviction and condemnation, you know? They don't understand the difference, man, you know? And to think now, like, man, that's a heavy burden to carry, if you really believe that you can earn your way to heaven, you know? There's a change that takes place, right? You know, you go through, you give your life to the Lord, you repent, right? Right? You got to get to a point where you're gonna mess up. We all fall short,
Right.
but you're living in the victory. You're not living for constant victory.
Right.
Does that make sense? You're living in that victory.
That's powerful.
You know?
Yeah.
And when you understand that you can live in that victory, that it's okay. You're gonna make mistakes. We're all gonna slip up. No one's perfect, you know. But you have a loving Father that loves you and is forgiving and will forgive you and wants you to do good. So you have to strive. Like, you know, the Bible says, like be holy, for I am holy. Like, you need to start like cleaning things up in your life. Like, how does a repentant heart look? You're constantly being molded in the image of Christ.
Right.
You're constantly. You know, I was talking about 2 Corinthians chapter 4. Like, at the end of verse 8, 9, it says to make you more like Christ. That's what we're doing. When we're pressed, when we're beaten, when we're dismayed, when we're perplexed, man, it's not, you know, it's for us to be molded into the image of Christ. And man, I pray for every young, you know, soul out there, every young individual that is toying and being tormented with this. Look at me. You are enough. Jesus loves you. Walk in that victory, you know?
Amen.
Walk in that victory.
Amen. No, man, like I remember growing up, me and my friends, you know, like your you know, late teens, early 20s, you know, our understanding of theology was, as long as I've repented of sin, right? And I haven't sinned, I like get to this, like, you know, kind of like when you were playing tag, you'd get to like base.
Yeah.
You know, like boom, like I'm good, you know?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. And it's like, well, if I did fall into sin and, you know, if I did fall into sin, I would want to repent of my sin and ask God to forgive me. But if Jesus returned after my sin, but before I ask him, that's it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I got called out on a technicality. I go to hell for all of eternity.
Yep.
You know, but that was like my theology.
Yes.
It's what I understood from being in a church that spoke a language that wasn't the language that I dreamed in. It wasn't my primary language.
No.
You know, and it was just like, well, you know, as long as, you know, the Lord's return doesn't catch you, like almost like we're in this like lottery, like oh, any second now the music's gonna stop and everybody's gotta sit.
Oh man, I remember like going to prayer meeting, like, please Lord, don't speak to me because I don't want a bad, you know, prophecy. You know, it's like,
if I do get a prophetic word, I want it privately. you know, I don't want anybody else to know.
Oh gosh, man, I would feel that way. They're like, why are you not praying? I'm like, I'm, you know, I don't feel good. I'm gonna be up on the stairs. You know, I don't want to be around the prophet that God's using. You know, but it's like, oh my goodness.
What
man,
what a wild and honestly biblically extremely distorted perspective.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And at the same time, God still showed up in those prayer meetings.
He did.
He still spoke through all these different people. He still ministered. People were still getting saved. And
yes.
And it's just such a testimony to like, man, it's really important to have healthy theology.
Yeah.
At the same time,
Yeah.
it's also important to understand
Yeah.
that it's not the health of my theology that God measures his impact in my life by. Because we can fall into the other extreme where it's like, okay, I got to get all of my theology perfect and only then God can use me. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you're just earning God's involvement in your life
Yeah.
again, but now you're doing it through theology
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
through works.
Yeah. Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's the opposite
Yeah.
end. Not
Yeah.
that I'm speaking against getting healthy theology. No, we need healthy theology.
We do. But you're almost living like, if I'm constantly being approved by the Lord, I'm gonna be blessed.
Right.
Like, I gotta show this because I'm doing this, so I gotta show him. And then I can be blessed. Then everything. Then my finances.
Right.
And then my kids are not sick. Then there's no turmoil in my house.
Gotta get the right formula.
Because what generally happens when you see somebody that's like in the rut? What's the first thing like you hear? Oh, they must have did something.
Right? Hey, I know there's one pastor, and I've known this many times, just working with pastors in the Romanian church all over America. But I remember there's one pastor, he had cancer.
Yeah.
He was dying of cancer.
Yeah.
And I found out about it through a series of events. And I was like, dude, how come he doesn't tell the church so we pray for him?
Yeah.
And his fear was that his church would think that he sinned, and that's why God gave him cancer. So he was struggling with cancer alone.
Heartbreaking.
And he wasn't doing what it is that he was preaching to his church, which is if you have, sickness in your life, bring it to the church so we can pray for you.
Yes.
Like, dude, it was ridiculous
Yes.
when I heard
Yeah.
it. I just thought to myself, man, this is so unhealthy.
Very unhealthy. Unbelievably unhealthy.
Super.
But think how much that occurs.
It happens a lot. And we multiply this
Yes.
theology
Yeah.
whenever we allow things, whenever we say things or we allow people to say things where it's like, oh, did you hear about so-and-so? Well, maybe they're going through that because of the sin that they did.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, no, that's got to get checked. It's like, hey, people go through suffering not because they sinned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's because
Sometimes,
of that.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's not an automatic guarantee.
no.
That's not good theology at all.
No.
Yeah. And yet somehow I feel like in spite of our bad theology, God's still so faithful to us.
Oh man, he's so sovereign, right?
Yeah.
He's so sovereign because he still shows up, man. He still shows up in those moments. When we lost my dad a few years back to COVID, like, man, I don't know. I just took it so hard because, generally, like, my thought process was like, Lord, me and you, we were pretty. I thought we were good. Like, I thought like this came out of nowhere, and especially like for somebody that wanted to live for so long. Like, if you would talk to my dad, he would tell him, man, I want to live till I'm over 100. He loved life, man. He never met a
Really?
stranger. Yeah, he never met he loved life, and he had a lot of wisdom to impart, And for that to happen and just to kind of just knock us like from nowhere, me and my mom, we took it, it just, and I just, I hit a point where I was just like, Lord, what's going on? Like, what happened? And my heart was like, I was hurting, I quit speaking at church, I would speak like about once a month. I kind of pulled back from that, and I was just kind of going through my grieving process, and it was pretty painful, But one thing that was definite is that God was still sovereign, and through all that, He showed me that He's still the same good God, the same all power, all knowing, very, the God that, you can't fathom what he's doing. You can't understand. His ways are not like our ways. So, but yeah, it was definitely interesting season. But yeah, I don't know, man. I pray that people really can experience God in a relationship that it's real, because you're not doing it for nobody else.
No, man,
God's going to speak to you, Eddie, differently than the way He speaks to me, right? You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be in a certain, place, in a sanctuary. Or this
model
and that.
method. Yeah.
No, there's really, you know what I mean? He shows up. He shows up, man. When you call upon Him, man, I've had some flat out praying, crying moments, man, in my gym, like down on my knees, crying with like a baby. Like, God shows up in these moments, like where you just call on Him, and it happens to the praise of His people, man. So I don't have enough good things to say about the Lord.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like when you try to, I don't have enough of good things to say about the Lord. But so that was me. That was the season I was in. That was the
How long were you locked up for?
Man, 3 years. About
3 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time,
It's a
man.
long time, man.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow,
3
that's
years.
rough.
Yep. 3 years, and when I
How
came,
many years were you facing in total, or did you do all of it?
I got out for good behavior, and then I was supervised release. So I did, I was able to qualify for that. But when I got out, you think like, oh, you got out, like, that's when he turned his life around. No, that's, because I remember, I was getting out and I still wasn't sure where I was going to do my supervised release. And I thought I was going back to, what I left. And that God just closed that door, There was a moment when I was sitting on that bed, in a halfway house, and I'm like, Lord, you see my heart, you see what I'm involved in, you see who the person I'm in a relationship with. I can't cut it. You're gonna have to do all the work. And I kid you not, man. The next day, I get a call. I don't know what you're gonna do, but this was a gal that I was gonna go back to, spend time with. She says, I don't know what you're gonna do, but I'm leaving. I'm moving out west. Your dog's at this location. That's the only thing I had I still had my Rottweiler, my dog. Your dog's over here at this location. You can pick it up whenever. And I was like, okay, God. And I remember calling my mom, and I'm like, Ma, if I change my supervisor release to North Carolina, would you accept me back home? Oh my goodness. My mom and my dad, they were screaming on the phone. I was like,
Answer
they were
prayer.
so happy. Answer prayer, man. My mom, that's the thing. Like, when you pray, as a parent and you pray for your kid, man, it says pray without ceasing. And my mom would bring my name up like Sundays, pray for my son, and she would be ridiculed. And they'd be like, man, your son is, look where he's at. You're a prophet, but no one believes, you know what I mean? And she says, I know what my God promised. My God promised that he will bring my son home to my doorstep. And she was faithful to that. She was faithful to that. 7 years, man. 7 years. That was her prayer. And she stood behind me, you know what I mean? She stood behind me. I remember every 2 weeks she would send me money. Man, Mom, thank you. I would get money in the mail, for my commissary, for things that I needed, like clockwork every 2 weeks,
Man.
Like, man, Mom is good. Mom was good.
Yeah, the value of having parents that love you.
I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, and you know what, man? Like, okay, your parents, like my parents. When I think of what their childhood was like, you know what I mean? It's not like they knew how to be the best parents, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they did what they knew, and they did it with excellence, and they strived.
They did.
And I just feel like, man, especially for this generation, like, I feel like there's so much information out there that people feel like, well, I got to go watch, 10 hours of YouTube on every single thing about how to raise a kid, and 10 hours on how to, prepare a baby bottle, and 10 hours on how to change a diaper. And, and it's like, man, when you look at our parents' generation, it's like, dude, there was no information to know.
There was no YouTube University.
There was no YouTube University.
They just did it, man.
Yeah. And the thing is, like if you needed to know how to change a transmission, you have to know a guy who knows about transmissions.
Yes.
Like you have to know a guy for everything,
Yep.
And it's like, in our parents' generation, it's like, they did the best that they could with what they had.
Yeah.
And they were just bold and courageous. But, it was enough.
It was enough because they loved, man.
Yeah.
They loved.
Yeah.
They loved their kids.
And they took action.
Yeah.
Like you have to have both. And I feel like in this generation, there's so much lack of taking action because there's this like analysis paralysis, where they're like, I want to analyze everything to death.
Yeah.
And then there's just a lack of empathy and of love and of care. And it's like, man, if you just do those things, you just love deeply and you just get to work, the rest will figure itself out.
Yeah, man.
Especially with all the different help that we have along the sides.
Oh, my goodness.
Man, I feel like it's easier than ever to be alive.
Yeah, it is. It is. But, man, but it's scary because you look at the statistics, man, and like suicide rate between teens, all-time high, anxiety between teens, all-time high. Teens that are 16 that don't want to drive, all-time high. And I don't get that. I'm like, how are you 16 and you don't want to drive?
Bro, at
because
13,
you're anxious.
I wanted to go, dude.
Oh my God, I remember stealing my dad's car when I was 15, sorry, but, and driving around the block, marking the tires and putting it back exactly the way it was, I was like,
gotta do what you gotta do.
My God. So, it's scary, and it's these phones, dude.
Yeah, honestly.
It's these phones. You can, we had this. I had this topic came up a few days ago with my daughters, and they didn't want to hear it, but you know, it's, man, these phones are crippling this generation, and it's doing numbers on adults too.
Oh,
you know,
100%.
doing
Yeah.
numbers on adults.
No, it's that IV drip of dopamine.
Yeah, man,
It's just
constant,
nonstop.
constant.
Yeah.
You got the, you know, they're like, when's the last time you sat down with like a 14, 15, 16-year-old and watched a movie from beginning to end? I don't know. Like, we struggle. I'm like, you guys want to do movie night? Let's, you know what I mean? It's like my son's 15 and he's there, but he's not there, you know? And it's, I don't know. I don't know. Have you experienced that?
Yeah. So my oldest is 12, and next after him is my 9-year-old now. He was 8, just turned 9. And we just watched The Lord of the Rings, like all 3 of them, because they're finally old enough to where they're not scared. You know, the last one we had to skip the spider scene or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But with them, we sat and we watched through all of it, but we're like very engaged. Like they're like, Dad, pause. Let me ask you about this. You know? So they're very engaged. Because if it wasn't for that, the younger one, he's like, can I get on my Switch while we watch? And I was like, no, son, if we're watching, we're watching. You know what I mean? Like, So it's also a little bit of control to help, you know, keep them kind of on target. But the other hard part is as a parent, and I don't know, man, maybe give me some advice on this. I've got this, you know, these 2 little boys. And they love playing their Nintendo Switch and stuff. And I understand the appeal and the draw of artificial success because it's curated through a video game. I get that. But I don't know what to do with them outside. Like I feel like I'm always scared to do too adventurous things, because if I do, like I'll give you an example. My oldest, when he turned 10, I bought him a rifle. So he has a Ruger 1022 takedown. It's a great gun, you know. Now, we can only use that whenever we go to the range or whenever we go out to the hills. What are some outdoor activities I should do with my boys?
Where do you live, like somewhere where it's very remote? Do you have some land? Do you have
not really? So
you got some space?
I'm on 1 3/4 acres.
Okay.
But I'm surrounded by small houses. I'm like in a fishbowl, so I can't fire the gun on the property. I have suppressors. I can put them on the rifle and I could fire them, but it's still, you know, I'm surrounded by houses.
Yeah. One thing I could tell you, get them something to ride. 4-wheelers.
Okay, I was thinking about getting them an ATV.
Yes, do it. It'll be the best. We ride, you know, ever since they were little, we always had mini bikes, 4-wheelers, dirt bikes. My son rides he rides a big 250 now, no problem.
So 9 and 12,
you can get
what should I be buying them? Like a 50 or 100?
Yeah, you can buy, Are they good on bike? They know how to ride bikes, right?
Yeah, they know how to ride bikes, but they're not, you know, the younger one's actually more athletic than the older one. But they're not. They haven't like played sports or anything like that. You know, I think they'll be fine.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. Get them a small ATV, and they make little ones, right? You know, it doesn't have to be a crazy brand name, you know, especially if they're beginning with one. But get them something small and make sure they got their helmets. And I promise you, they'll love it. You know,
I appreciate the advice.
There's places that you can ride. So that's one way to get them out of the house.
What's funny is this last Christmas we were planning on buying them an ATV, and we're like, maybe we'll wait a year, maybe not, and so on. But I'm glad we're talking. about this.
Get them one, right? They make one, you know, strictly for that age. You know what I mean? And they got ones that you can govern it where it doesn't go as fast. Okay. So you can be the parent in control. You know, just make sure they got their helmets and let boys be boys. You know, when they fall and get bruised up, it's okay. They're boys, man. You know what I mean?
I'm not.
It's
worried
good for
about
them
that. So on the front of my property, I have quite a few trees, you know, because my property is like a flag-shaped property, and the little property in front of mine it's like this little 20-foot long single-wide. AT&T owns it. They keep servers in it, and it's just surrounded by like evergreen trees and forests. So it just stays forest year round. Yeah. But I was thinking of building a tree house with them, you know, just to keep them.
Oh man, you
know, cut things and build things.
They're at that age that, you know, I see how it is with my son. They want to spend time with you. You know what I mean? So if it's building something that you guys could do together, man, and you know you can do some quality time together, man, do it. You know,
that's awesome.
Invest in them in those things. You know what I mean? And you don't have to. That one thing, like being a parent to children, you know, especially to boys. Like, you don't have to constantly be doing something as long as you're together, because they know, like, I'm with Dad, you know what I mean? We could be outside, even like if it's just small stuff, even raking the leaves. Hey, give me a hand raking the leaves.
Yeah.
You're doing something together, you know?
Yeah, we have chickens. So I grew up on a farm. You know,
cool.
I grew up in Sacramento. We had like 120 chickens and goats and sheep and, you know, everything else. And so now where I live, I have chickens, and every time we work on it, you know, they come and they give me a hand.
Nice.
They may not always want to, and that's okay. You know, it's part of it though.
It's good for them. So get them outside.
No, that's good, man. The ATV, thank you for that.
ATV, I promise it'll be
Okay,
definitely.
So you were in you know, locked up, got out, went back to North Carolina. What age were you there?
Went back to North Carolina. I was 26.
Okay.
I was 26.
And then you had a like genuine relationship with the Lord, or not yet? that was coming.
So when I made that call to mom and dad, they're like, you don't have to come to church, just come home and you can, you know what I mean? That was their like selling point. Cause I was like, Ma, I'll come, but I don't want to hear nothing about church. I don't want to hear, no, okay. And, made my way to North Carolina, me, my dog and some possessions. And, yeah, that was, they were fine for like a few weeks. Then afterwards, like, when you coming to church? When you coming to church?
The
I'm like,
old bait and
oh,
switch.
yes. They're like, oh, you got me. Yeah, but in that time, God was softening my heart, being back with family, being back around that community, you know what I mean? Like, man, what I came out of, I was very rigid, I was very calloused and very rigid. I was very, I didn't trust people, and God, I was around family, which was, man, that's what I needed at that time, because He had to soften my heart. He had to make the you know what I mean, the ground, the sower and the seed. He had to make the right type of environment for something to grow, And I remember I went to church, and man, that sermon was right to me, dude. It was like.
What church? Do you remember where you were?
It was the small church before we got into our bigger church, First Romanian Pentecostal, and Pastor Benny Petruzzano, you know him. Do you know?
Petruzzano,
yeah, from Bethany.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the pastor, and man, he had a message, dude.
And it was during his sermon that the Lord used
sermon, he used that, and James 4:8, that's the verse that, everybody like, when you're a prodigal and you come back to the Lord, there's always a verse, that really hits home. Mine was James 4:8, and when it says, if you take one step towards God, He's faithful to take one towards you.
Yeah.
And I was like, Lord, I remember saying, Lord, okay, all right, if this is real, if you say who you are, I'm going to take one step and we'll see what happens. And with that, man, things started opening. I remember right around that time, I told you, I was telling you guys earlier, my aunt was trying to play matchmaker and was like, hey, I know somebody in Nashville, she's like you, Americanized, and I'm like, no, I'm like, Tushot, I'm good.
Thank God
No. And she like literally opens my hand and puts her phone number in there. And I was like, oh, okay. And I put it in my wallet, thank God I put it in my wallet. And, it sat in my wallet for a minute, and I remember God one night was like, man, call that number. I was like, Lord, I don't want to. And He kept saying, what's the worst gonna happen? Maybe you're gonna make a friend. You need a friend, you know what I mean? You're out here, you have really no friends,
And she was in Nashville?
She was in Nashville, yep. She was in Nashville. And she got wind of that from her sister, because her sister and my aunt were like really good friends back in Romania and also here in the States, And they were trying to, how the Romanians are, Still, I know somebody.
Hey, thank God for pushy aunts, man. There'd be a lot of single people if it wasn't for pushy aunts.
So, hey, if you're listening to me, I was saying this earlier. If you got a phone number in your wallet from somebody, don't throw it away.
Yes.
Don't throw it away.
Give it a call.
You
What's
never
the
know.
worst?
What's the worst that can happen? You need a friend, right?
Oh, and on the other end, if you're an aunt who's hesitant about being pushy, be pushy.
Be pushy. Don't worry about the backlash. Just be pushy.
They'll get over it. Don't worry about it.
So true, man. So true. So yeah, I called that number, and man, God worked it out. And I remember when we talked, the first time we talked, man, we talked for hours. And back then, we had the phone where I was like, I'm going to call you at 9 because it was free minutes,
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. And I remember being in that room, where my phone only worked a certain way. So I had to sit on the bed like sideways. And I'm like, well, hold on, Simone, hold on. Okay, can you hear me? And she's
nights
like,
and weekends,
oh, my God, nights and weekends, but for hours.
Yeah.
And we're like, we talked about seeing each other. We did not send any information about each other, like what we look like. We're like, when we first meet, let that be the first time we see each other. We don't want to look at pictures. We don't want anybody to describe. We're going to see first time we meet, we're going to go from there.
Bro, are you serious?
Yes. I had no idea. Listen, I had no idea. So when she made her way down to North Carolina, my mom had to think from the Lord, your wife is going to come see you. And when I would talk to Simona and we talked about it, and she's like, well, when are you going to come up here and see me? And I was like, Simona, I think the first time you're going to come down here. She's like, I'm not coming down there. Why would I come down there? I'm like, my mom said, you're going to come down here. It's going to be from the Lord. You're going to come down, And I remember it was, yeah, man, it was Easter. And she came down with her younger sister, her 3 nieces, her older sister, and her husband, right? They were coming to my aunt's house. I was going to go meet them there. So right? When I walked in this room and I was like, all I seen was just females on the couch.
You're like, which one is it?
That's what I said, Simona, please stand up. Which one are you? And she stood up and I was like, thank you,
Dude, that's hilarious.
Oh man, I tell that story because it's like I remember being so nervous and so clammy hands, and I'm like, I'm scanning the room. I'm like, Simona, please, help me out here, stand up, And she's like,
I love that you had to ask.
Yeah.
I haven't met your wife before, or if
Yeah.
I have, I don't recall. But
you will this weekend.
Yeah. But I love the fact that you walked in. And she let you sweat a little bit.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So it was like, I'm like, man, that's wifey material. I need one with a sense of humor.
That's great.
It was awesome, and man, that started at 6 months later. Man, we got married.
Hey, that's awesome.
6 months later, we got
All right,
married.
for all of you single people listening, it's not that complicated.
No.
That's all I'm saying.
No.
It's not that complicated.
No.
Look, who you pick is important.
Yes.
But what's much more important is that you work on your marriage.
There you go.
That's
equally yoked, right?
Yes.
You got to be equally yoked. I tell everybody, be equally yoked. You don't have to be the same nationality, but be equally yoked.
Yeah.
It's
So how long ago
vital.
was that you guys got married? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot a little here.
22 years ago, man.
Nice, man.
22 years ago.
Awesome.
20, yeah. Oh my goodness. 22 great years, man. But great years, but of course, with life, right? It comes in waves. It hits you. I have three amazing children, Michaela, Brooke, and Micah. Micah's my youngest. He's turning 15. Brooke's my middle. She's turning 17. Michaela's turning 19. Great children. Love the Lord. You know what I mean? Love the Lord. It's clear in their fruits. They're not like your typical, they're really relationship, One thing with them. I said, relationship, kids. Me and your mom can only do so much. We want you to have a relationship, and it's going to look different than other relationships, other people that you see, but you make sure it's real.
Yeah.
We're going to keep praying. We're going to, we're going to weed out the bad things that we can, you know what I mean? Make sure God just puts the right people in your life, ordain the step, the Holy Spirit continue ordain your steps, cause man, it's crazy out here.
Man,
It's scary out here.
my oldest is 12, and I know he's still young.
Yeah.
I know. But being a youth pastor for many, many years and working with youth all across America, and especially at home, and really focusing on small group discipleship and mentoring and discipling people, he's at this age now where, he's kind of, coming into, his teenage years and so on. And I just almost had this panic attack like 6-9 months ago.
Been
man.
there.
Where I'm just like, all right, choose Jesus.
Because you get to a point where you can't do much.
And
Eddie,
I hate that, dude.
You
I
can't
hate
do
it, dude. I hate
You're
it
like,
so much.
God, what I did, what you taught me, what I instilled, right? You take what your parents did that were great, right? You take those values, right? And but you adjust the things that you see didn't work, didn't work.
You're trying to build and make it better.
Because you always want, we always say, "Fi mai bine decât mine," right? You know what I mean?
That's the goal of every parent.
Because you
Be
always
better than me.
Yes, yeah. You always want to give them the tools. It's like you don't have to go round and round, right? If I'm telling you, this is what's gonna happen. This is the outcome. Like, take it as sound advice. I'm here. We're here to help you. We're here to protect you. We're here to show you. Yeah, you're gonna. it's okay to make mistakes. You know what I mean? It's okay to be
right.
My poor middle daughter. The other night, she was just like, I don't know what I want to do when I get. And I'm like, Brooke, you got time, girl. You got time. You're only 16. I promise. God's got your future. God's got your future. So yeah, it's.
Like I with Franklin, like I want him to choose now, this weekend. I'm like, okay, we're here. There's gonna be an altar call. Go down and give your life to Jesus and make this easy,
Yeah.
But the timing of it is between him and the Lord. And I love it and it's correct. And I hate that I can't make it happen. You know what I mean? And so that it's just so hard being a parent because it's like you're like, I love my son, obviously. and I just want them to decide and to know Jesus, and I want it not in a year from now. I want it now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's rough, man.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, you know what it's like.
Oh yeah. Boys are different. Boys are different than girls, man. But one thing for sure is that he recognizes that. You know what I mean? Because being raised where he's at in a good household, man, he sees in you, you know, the right fundamentals, right, the right attributes, the right things. You know what I mean? Sees your sacrifices, sees, you know, that you're a loving husband, you're a provider. You pray like those, you know. At times, like we're like, Lord, is that adding up? Does that make?
Is it enough?
Is it enough?
Yeah.
Are they absorbing this? They are. They are. So just have the confidence, man. That
it's a good reminder.
Yeah, man. You know, he's God's. You're right. God gave you. Right. You brought him before the Lord for that. You know that dedication. Right. What'd you do? You're like, Lord, this is not mine. This is yours. You're entrusting me to grow. I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna make mistakes, but you know, this is yours. This is yours. So help me be a good steward of His future. You know, and let everything point to you. You know that He does, man. So you're okay. They're in good hands, man. You're fine. You know what I mean? Don't overthink it too much. You know,
that's my
boys
issue.
are gonna be boys. I know.
That's my issue, dude. Because you know what I mean? It's like when you love somebody.
Yeah.
You're just like, all right, but I can't let go of this.
And
Like,
oh, it's brutal, man.
It's the hardest thing to be like, okay, but I need to figure this out. It's like it's not yours to figure out. And you're like, what do you mean?
Yeah, because we're fixers. You know what I mean? We like to make sure everything adds up and all the things are checked and and God's like, no, He's mine. Okay, Lord.
It's a rough journey.
It is. It is
a good journey. It's a rough one.
It is, but it's rough, man. It has its moments, but don't stop praying for him.
Yeah,
don't stop praying for him, man. And if I can tell any parent out there, man, put your hands on your kids, man. As a dad, man, if you felt led, put your hands on your boy, man. Pray for him. They're going through stuff, especially they're teenagers. They're going through stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they are.
It's a scary world out here, man. Don't be afraid to put your hands on your family and say, man, not here, Satan, not today,
Yeah.
Man, because we got that authority. I don't think, as Christians, right? We get so comfortable and we're like, everything's good and everything, the box, and I mean, in my pew and my name here and my tithing and everything's good. But man, it's like, man, we gotta fight. We have to fight because the devil is out for our kiddos, man. And the devil's out. 100%. Who's he going to hit first? Not your wife. He's going to hit you first, Eddie.
That's right.
He's going to hit the man because he knows statistically, what is it? You take out the husband, you take out the man, the whole family's going to crumble after that.
The family falls apart. Yeah. If the child goes to church, it's a 3% chance that the rest of the family will.
Yeah.
If the wife does, I think it was like 40 or 50 or something like that. If the husband does, it's like in the 90s.
90s, man. 90s.
Yeah. No, it's so important, for us as men to just. I feel like people look at, Vino and they look at Eddie and they're like, okay, but, you guys are like in ministry, So like, that's why you guys, it's normal for you to like, lay your hands on your family and pray for them and so on. And it's like, no, man, like every single man has a responsibility to pray for their kids, to pray for their family, and not just in secret. Dude, like every guy that I knew growing up, every guy that I knew, myself included, man, you'd come home drunk or you'd come home high or you'd come home from something, right? And then you would hear your mom praying at like 1 in the morning. You'd hear her praying loud through the wall.
Oh, didn't that just gut wrench you?
That's like the worst experience,
man. Yeah. I can see that it hits home with you, man.
Of course it does, man. But it's like, dude, like that's the story that we all know. And I think to myself, man, I hope that there aren't people in our churches that come home and don't know what it's like to hear their parents praying for them, whether you're in sin or not in sin. Man, like I think about myself. I'm like, dude, my kids need to know what I sound like when I'm praying for them. They need to hear my voice praying. They need to hear mom praying for them. Like it's so important to have that built into your family. Like something that I'm starting to do now with my boys. So Bible memorization is something that we've done in the past, which is important. And also, like, I want to start just having devotionals with them, but devotionals with them in like let's sit down and have a devotional. It's harder for boys, right? Because like women, they'll sit face to face and they do relationship, right? But as men, we do relationship shoulder to shoulder, And so it's like even in discipleship, like whenever I would disciple guys and stuff over the years, we'd be working on a project and like, okay, I got this property where I live now. It's 1 3/4 acres and I fenced it because an immigrant, and the first thing I did was build a fence.
This is mine, okay, guys.
And I'm also, from California, so my first thought was some kid's gonna ride his bike on my property, break his leg, and sue my homeowners insurance. So I got 2 strikes here, right? Man. So I'm building this fence, and I got these guys, that I'm investing in and mentoring and discipling.
Yeah.
And I could tell you around my property, my current property where I'm at. Yeah. I could tell you around my property as we're installing fence posts, they would come over, and give me a hand or something, and we just spend the day together. Sure. And I can tell you at which fence post, I had a conversation with Mark about different things in his life. Which fence post, John was
man.
like, hey man, there's this girl, I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
A couple of fence posts later, a couple of weeks later, he's like, hey dude, I think I'm gonna ask this girl to marry me,
Oh, dude.
And you're like, there's
How
all
cool
these like
is
markers
that,
all over. Yeah,
man?
it's super cool,
Oh, man, dude.
And so
that's
like,
what it's about.
Yeah, it's like
That's what it's
even with
about.
my boys and stuff, like I want to do devotionals, but I want to do devotionals shoulder to shoulder. Like, hey, let me teach you how to work on something. Even back in Sacramento, like that's how we always did discipleship, where it's like, okay, what am I working on? All right, I'm going to change rotors on the car. Let me see which one of these 15-year-old guys needs to learn how to change rotors. And it's like, all right, come over to my house. Let me teach you how to change rotors. Let me teach you how you do it right, how you do it wrong. And while we're halfway into this, tearing down this car, they were like, hey man, can I ask you something? It's like, yeah, man, go for it. I'm sitting there, I know exactly where we're going, covered up in grease. And he's like, dude, there's this, thing in my heart that I've been kind of frustrated about, or my mom and dad or whatever. That's where it happens, And so this is what I'm in pursuit of with my sons as well now, where it's like, okay, they're a little bit older and we can start sitting down and will the work take twice as long? Yes.
Yeah, it's okay.
But the work that's happening isn't the work.
Yeah.
The work that's happening is the mentoring, the disciple,
Yeah.
So these are the things that go through my mind now,
man.
as I'm
it's the
sitting
right
here.
things that are going through. You got the right things going through your mind with your boys. You know what I mean? It's man, God's putting the right things. You're pondering on the right things,
Good,
brother.
man.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
glad to
pondering
hear
on
that
the right
for somebody who's ahead of me on
yeah,
that journey.
Yeah, because like we, in this men's group that I've been in at our church, like one of the guys there, Garrison, he's constantly saying, we're living in where men don't talk about their feelings.
Right.
Men are not vulnerable. We're taught, hey, you suck it up, you deal with it, you don't cry, you know what I mean? It's, and you've seen in our background, we had that grit and that's what we've done. But, I know being a father of a boy and especially even with the girls, like they need to see your vulnerable side, and they need to see we're not always going to say the right things.
Right,
we're not always going to do the
right.
right things, but there's a lot of fathers, man, that don't go before their children and say, listen, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I lost my temper.
I lost it. I'm a sinner too. I'm not perfect. I need Christ just as much as you do. I make mistakes. I'm still human. I'm sorry. Can you find it in your heart to forgive me?
Yeah.
Man, you know how valuable, how powerful that is, man, where you can do that with your children.
Yeah.
It's super important to do that.
Whenever there's conflict in any relationship, right? After conflict, the relationship will either be further apart or closer together, but it will not remain the same.
Yeah.
So like even like in marriage, right? Like you have a conflict with your spouse.
Yeah.
If you don't resolve it and you just bury it, it'll create some distance.
It will.
But if you resolve it, you're so much closer together than you were before the conflict.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's the same thing with kids too. So what I've learned is like with my kids, if I have a conflict with them and like, okay, like one of the things that I tell my kids all the time is whatever it is that you're working on, you can succeed or fail.
Yeah.
But if you lose your patience, that's the first failure.
Yeah.
Before you fail or succeed at the thing,
good.
losing your patience is automatically a failure.
That's good.
That's one thing
Yeah.
So sometimes I lose my patience.
Yeah.
And I'll sit there and I'll think to myself, if I don't address this with them and I tell them, hey guys, I failed.
Yeah.
I lost my patience.
Yep.
Then they're going to hear the thing that I said, which is if you lose your patience and you fail. If I don't own that, then all I've done is I've ruined my credibility for other things that I'm going to say.
Yep.
And I can't do that.
No.
And so I take ownership in it and I'll sit there and I'll ask them to analyze and I'll say, hey guys, I lost my patience. Did I succeed or did I fail? And they're like, you failed that. And that's a weird thing to hear your kids say. It's a weird thing for a kid to say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, correct, I did. But failure isn't screwing up. Failure is staying down.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to own this and we're going to get past it. All right. So here's how I'm going to address it, you know?
Yeah.
And so, it's,
Man, that's awesome.
no, it's interesting, but it's like,
Powerful.
man, when it comes to relationships, man, like all of us, like we love our kids so much. I just want to do better than my dad did because my dad did better than his dad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. That's a good success
It
hope.
is.
You know?
It is. It is. It is. It is. And it's, some things, you can try to run away from it, but some things that are not the best, they still come out,
Right.
It's like, oh, Lord, put a brittle on this mouth of mine. That's where like, I'm, us being European, like we like to get elevated and we like to talk with the hands and, it's, and our kids are just, carbon copies of ourselves. So why is your voice higher than mine? Why is your tone? Well, your tone's higher. No, why is your, and it's like, okay, let's diffuse. Let's come back. Let's get, it's such an interesting, walk and dynamic.
Something I hate, which is true, is your kids don't do what you say; they do what you do.
Oh, yeah, so true. They're sponges, man. They're sponges. So if you think they're not watching and soaking it up, you got to rethink it.
Yeah.
They are paying attention. Because they'll be the first one to call you. Hey, man, you were talking about this, and then you didn't. You're like, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Are you
you're right."
secure enough to take ownership? Right? It's like, all right. You know?
God bless the kiddos. Ooh,
So
yeah.
you came back North Carolina.
Came back
started
north.
talking Simona,
Simona,
met
yeah.
her, got
Met her,
married.
yeah.
And everything was roses after that, right? And then they lived happily ever
beautiful.
after.
We had money in the bank, we had the perfect house, the chain link fence, the picket white fence, it was awesome. Anybody is wondering how it works. Yeah, right?
Just like in Disney, and then they lived happily
it's like,
ever after,
we can
it
end
was
the show
fine.
on that, right? No?
It's done.
Oh my goodness, man. It's marriage, it's marriage, it's work, it's kids, it's mortgages, it's bills, it's doctors and babies and formula, and you know what I mean, just
Yeah.
anything that comes with it, but man, it's a season of growth, season of growth. It's like, it's hard to explain having kids to somebody that doesn't have kids, you know what I mean?
You can't.
And you can, you're like, man, you'll see, and it's hard to explain like to your children, like you're trying to instill some parent values, and until you're gonna see when you have kids, you know what I mean? It's like, there's such a disconnect there, because you just can't explain to somebody what having children means.
Jay and I got this friend, that guy John that I was telling you about that. He's like, hey, I think I'm gonna ask. So his wife is pregnant. She's due, I think, in like 3 days. It's the first.
Goodness. Oh gosh.
And he texted me the other day, and he's like, hey man, everybody I tell that like, the wife's pregnant, we're running around and we're like stressed out and frazzled.
Yeah.
He goes, every single person I've told that has kids, all say the same thing. Don't worry, John, it's gonna get a lot worse.
Oh my goodness.
He goes, why do they keep telling me that? I go, because they're telling you the truth, John.
Yeah, they're preparing you, man. They're not sugarcoating.
There's no way I can explain to you why, but it's going to get worse, buddy.
Oh, my goodness.
Imagine everything that you're struggling to do twice as much with half as much sleep. Right? That's a good,
That's exactly right. That's it.
He said, this is such a clear, typical answer from somebody who hasn't had kids yet. He goes, right after, the baby's born, we want to work on some disciplines in our life. And I was just like, dude, you're just hanging on.
Yeah.
What are you working on disciplines? You're trying to survive.
Exactly.
I go, take your list of priorities, cut it in half, and you're not going to do half of that, right? Like your critical items, you're going to lose some of those too.
Oh, yeah.
And then eventually you'll figure it out, but you're hanging on.
It's an adjustment, it's adjustment. But like you said, some nights you're just hanging on. You're just like, I don't know. Thank God that we just leave it in the Lord's hands, But the kiddos came, when we started having kids, they came every 2 years. So, every 2 years. And there was a time where, I worked every other weekend. So my wife was at church with the kiddos. And man, God bless my pops, because he had his little spot, and Simona would come, and that was our spot next to Dad. And, he would... he loved the kiddos, man, and he would, so many times, she'd say, "Man, your dad really helped out today. Your
That's
dad,
awesome.
and I had, I had to take one in the back, and he was there with the other one. So it's something."
So you were working electrical contractor?
Yep. I was an electrician. Did a lot of industrial, so I was doing a lot of shutdown work. I was traveling a lot, when the kiddos came. God opened up that door, and I remember with Micah, when she was pregnant with Micah, like I was ready to be home, and I'm like, Lord, I've been, we do some projects, locally, but like during the holidays, we did a lot of shutdown work. Plants were shut down, so we'd go in there and, move machinery and redo this and redo that, work on boilers and transformers and whatnot. So I was like, Lord, you're gonna have to open the door where I don't want to travel no more. I got to be close. I want to be close to home. Where I can.
How far were you traveling?
I was going to like. I was going to like Oklahoma.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I was going.
Like you weren't driving.
No, we were going to Kentucky. We were going, out west to Tennessee. We did some work, so we were kind of jumping around a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was we'd go for a week, come home, do some stuff around, and then go back, and just, we had some really good contracts where they were just moving, these lines that from North Carolina, out west. So
I got you.
we're just, as a provider, what you got to do it. But
Young family.
but during that time, it was like, my walk with the Lord, I was, God was still working to where I was ministering to my crew. I was ministering to guys there. We had, what I mean? It was, man, it was God worked on a lot of hearts on the road.
Yeah.
So, with Micah, the third one, I was like, Lord, I don't want to do this no more. And I remember my boss, he understood, and he's like, listen, there's a plant close to your house, and they're looking for some electrical support in-house. They want to like do a maintenance contract. And he's like, I know if I send you there, they're probably going to ask you to work there. He's like, but I know you're ready. And I was like, thanks, Jeff. I love you, So I filled that position, and I did that as a sub for about 1.5 years. And then afterwards, they're like, listen, we really love you. We want you to be our in-house guy. And we talked, and the Lord opened that door, and money was right. And, that's where I spent the next 12 years.
Wow. It's a long time anywhere, man.
Yeah, man.
12.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 12 years there. And then, man, the goal, I mean, anybody that's doing a trade, it's like, man, let's see, where we can take it. And Simona was like, I think you need to go get your license, get your unlimited. You can qualify for it. I was licensed in Michigan. She's like, I think you can qualify for it. And I was like, you think so? And she's, yeah, I think it's time, I said, okay.
When you do your electrical contractor's license here, is it through NASCLA?
Here? No, it's through, just the NEC board. Yeah,
okay.
National Electrical Contract.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
through Raleigh. Yeah, you just, you fill out their paperwork. You got to have so many years. You can qualify for three different positions, limited, unlimited, and what's the other one? There's a third one.
And shoot, what I was just about to ask you. I've been trying to like, yeah. So you became an electrical contractor
Yes.
here in North
Right
Carolina.
here in North Carolina. Yep. I took my exam. I failed it the first time. I passed it the second time. I know the first time when I failed it, my dad was like, "It's okay, don't lose." It's like, all right. He believed in me.
It's good.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
That's what I was going to ask you about the exam. What's the exam like?
Oh, it was brutal, man.
I bet.
It was brutal. It's one of the hardest ones because, it's North Carolina is one of the states where you can take it, then it reciprocates all in like 17 different states around.
Yeah.
So like, you can go all around North Carolina and work and be an electrical. It's just paperwork,
Yeah.
So it was a difficult one. It was a hard one, but man, kids running around the house. I remember studying in my, and at that time the dining room, and I had my headphones on, and mom's like, "Shh, let your dad study," and I'm like, "It's okay." But yeah. So I passed the second time, and then, I was always doing like little side jobs here and there, on the weekends, and it just got to a point where God just continued to open up doors, and I was like, all right, God, what we talked about earlier, I didn't want to live with no regrets. I said, I'm going to try this. And, we've been at it, so I've been on operation, 2.5 years, almost 3 years. So
Nice, man. Nice.
Yeah. With its own little challenges, you see how it is. But.
Yeah. No, the joys of building a business. It's what's funny about business owners is they say, us entrepreneurs, we're the only people who will work 80 hours a week, so we don't have to work 40 hours a week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're like, you like the freedom? I'm like, what freedom? It never ends. You know what I mean? So if there's anybody around Charlotte looking for an electrical contractor, hit me up. Alan Paul Electric LLC. I am listed. So
perfect.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to plug. I had to plug it.
You got it, man.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's funny because people are like, oh, you have freedom because you run your own business. You're like, yeah, freedom to choose what am I going to work 16 hours on today. But that's it.
It never ends. It never ends. It comes with its own challenges, that, But it's so funny because my kids were like, Dad, I thought you were going to start your business so we could see you more. We never see you, I'm like, you never show up. You never. I'm like, I'm sorry. It is what it is.
Yeah, the goal is so I can hire you as an employee. We can see each other all day.
I know, right? I know. I'm like, Mike, are you coming to work this weekend? I got some stuff I got to do.
So where are you guys serving now?
We are serving in Maiden at Living Word. Living Word Church out of Maiden. We were in the Romanian community at the First Romanian Pentecostal Church in Hickory. We were there for a long time, 20 years plus. And the Lord just has us in a different season. It's hard to explain. It's hard for people to understand. I know some feel like, what is this guy doing? How did he, but it's okay. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm going to answer for it, but I know it's a God movement, God moved. It wasn't something we did like in a spur of moment. Like we didn't put much thought into it.
No.
You know what I mean? It was something we prayed about. It was something that, that we really tossed and turned and wrestled with. And, cause my mom still goes to that church, I have family that are in ministry, you know what I mean? Pastors, married my first cousin. So there's a lot of history and love that. You love the church. It's just the Lord just has us in a different season, just in a different season where, the kids were they were wanting just something a little bit more, something
Something in their language.
something in their language.
I mean, let's be honest here.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, like, cause I have little kids that are getting older, but I also used to be a youth pastor for so many years, and it's like, man, at the end of the day, there's already so many battles. The kids don't need to be fighting a battle of language.
Yeah.
They need to hear the gospel in their own language, so that way they can come and meet the Lord.
Yeah.
So I get that. At least from my
churches,
perspective.
and there are churches, I'm aware that there are churches that are trying to do their best,
Oh, yeah.
and they're doing, and I'm not
100%.
saying that where we were, they didn't, they had the translation, but they, it was hard because the kids were like, Dad, like, we're hearing one thing, then they're explaining it, then they're going, and it's like you're constantly like, you don't know who to pay attention.
Yeah.
It's a little bit easier for us because we can understand both, right?
Right.
So we can process it twice, we get the message twice, right? But for them, it's just a little different, and I'm like, and I'm just like, is anybody else feeling that way? Is anybody, they're like, yeah, some are. And I'm like, how come where's the voice? I'm like, some just don't want to rock the boat,
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and we get a lot of that too. Yeah.
No.
And it's the same thing even with my family. Like when we moved out here, not everybody understands why.
No.
And honestly, part of me doesn't understand why.
Yeah.
But I know I'm going to be faithful to the Lord. I know that much,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I know, secondly, nobody else has to understand what it is that God's doing with you. You and God have to understand what God's doing. And that's it, I was doing this study recently. I've just been really focused in on John the Baptist.
Yeah.
Just studying a ton on him.
Man.
And it's funny, man, because I did this study about, not so much about John and his ministry while on earth, but more so about Zechariah, his father. And from Zechariah's perspective of John the Baptist, because I got these kids, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just thinking about how, like, man, 400 years of silence, and then first time all the Israelites are hearing, this supernatural angel Gabriel comes and proclaims about John the Baptist. That's kind of wild, right? And then, also about Jesus, right? Here's Zechariah. He's one of the main priests in Israel at the time.
Yeah.
His wife is from the lineage of Aaron, the high priest.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine what's in Zechariah's head,
Yeah.
Is my son going to be the Messiah? Or if he's not the Messiah, okay, is my son going to be the next high priest? Like an Aaron Moses kind of situation, Jesus and John.
Do you think when he was told what was going to happen and his response wasn't like Mary's response when the angel told Mary?
Right.
Do you think if his response would have been different, do you think that he wouldn't have lost his voice?
Yeah, possibly.
You know what I mean?
Possibly.
Because I did a little study on the two,
Yeah.
the differences, and it's like,
I could easily see that.
Yeah.
But, so it's like you're looking at John's life and he's got all these promises for him.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, from Zechariah's perspective, surely at 25, he's going to preschool.
sure.
25 comes around, he doesn't go to preschool. 26, 27, 28, 29. Okay, 30, he's going to go to preschool. Now he's clearly got to be a priest. I'm a priest. I'm a high-ranking priest. He's a Levite. I'm a Levite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as a father, you have this plan for your kid,
Yeah.
And then here comes John, and at some point in time in his life, he goes, Dad, I'm not going to go to preschool. I'm going to go to the wilderness. And what are the key things known about John? That he's borderline nuts, essentially. What's known about him? He eats wild honey and locusts and has a camel hair tunic and a leather belt. Those are the things that are known about him, not his position, not title, not priest, not,
something, yeah.
And so he's out there doing this. Imagine Zacharias, but God, you said and you promised and Gabriel said. And right? And then eventually his ministry starts, John the Baptist, within a couple of months beheaded, not even for preaching the gospel, but for offending the king, because he said, that woman that you have is, I don't understand. And yet I look at what Jesus says about John the Baptist, and he goes, no man born of a woman is greater than John the Baptist.
Man,
That's huge.
huge.
And so I think about it like in the way that we weigh things out,
Yeah.
and in the journey that God's got all of us on. And it's like, man, at the end of the day, man, I used to have so many different ideas and like hopes and dreams and desires and plans. And I could see like, oh, I see the potential there, and we could do this, and we could do that. And I just feel like, man, in this last couple of years, like God has so stripped away everything that I just want to be faithful.
Man.
That's it. That's all I got. Like, I don't have a second thing. On my list of priorities, it's not faithful, and then it's just faithful. And that's it. Everything else is gone. And I just look at John the Baptist, and it's like, dude, if Jesus never said that about him, I think we would look at him as kind of a failure. You know, or, okay, he had a little role. You know, so no man born of a woman is greater than John the Baptist. That's something wild. You know? And so, like, even with you know, what I do with my life and what you do with your life, it's like, man, at the end of the day, are we being faithful? And the rest of it, dude, I don't even need anybody else to understand. I just need to know that I'm in a place where I can lay my head at night and I go, dude, I feel like I'm pursuing the Lord with everything that's in me. And if I'm wrong, then Paul started towards Asia Minor, and the Holy Spirit redirected him. Right? Paul started towards a different direction. The Holy Spirit redirected him, right? And then the third time, he has a dream about a man in Macedonia saying, come over to us. So even if I start wrong, it's like God can't redirect me, you know? But I had a guy, a missionary out of Mexico, a white guy named Chico. And
everybody needs a white guy named Chico,
But he said something to me. He goes, dude, he goes, I was in ministry school in Florida, and I didn't know what to do. He goes, but I had a professor who just said one thing to me, and I knew I just had to get started with whatever was in front of me. And I go, what did he say? And he goes, God can't steer a parked car.
Oh, man. Like, ooh, that's so for somebody out there. That's for somebody out there.
It was so good when he said that.
Profound, boy.
Because that paralysis analysis, you know, where it's like, well, until God says I won't move. And it's like, no, God can't steer a parked car. He's got to get going. And then God will steer. Yeah. It was really powerful.
Awesome, man.
That encouraged me a ton.
Yeah, man, that's very encouraging. It's encouraging me, man. Yeah, because a lot of people don't understand, and they just won't, you know, and they probably will never understand. You know, they're only gonna know you as far as their relationship with the Lord, however deep that goes.
Right.
They don't know how deep your relationship with the Lord is. You know what I mean? They don't know how
their opinion shouldn't even matter.
It shouldn't, but man, we're so consumed in what people think, and you know,
what's the community gonna say?
They're gonna like, look, you know, so and so's got necklaces on. You know, it's like, oh man, we can't. Why are we still stuck in this? Why
get hung up a lot?
Why are we still stuck there? Because it's like quicksand, man. Can't move, you know. But
and then at the end of the day, the question is you know, everybody's got different opinions about what we got to do and this and that. Okay, where's the fruit? That's what I'm wondering, you know, because what the enemy wants us to do is to get stuck in these little details where we fight one another and to make us ineffective. If he can't destroy the church, he will neutralize its effectiveness.
You don't have to be doing any crazy sin, right? You just have to be ineffective. You just have to be distracted with something, because they will not let you, fulfill your purpose.
Distracted.
Everybody's got a purpose, man. Everybody's got a purpose.
So
for sure,
you guys are here at this church, and then you guys are doing ministry now.
We're here at this church.
Or more ministry.
More ministry, right? And the Lord opened a door where we were, you know, I was able to be part of a nonprofit, Arise Again. It's called AriseAgain2.org. And I think, will you put some info on it?
Oh,
probably?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be in the caption of this video on our social media feeds everywhere. Information on the ministry that you guys do. Tell us about that.
Well, it's, we are, the Lord's got us, a heart with Ukraine right now. Everybody knows what's going on over there. It's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And, I just think about, when you hear, we talk to, friends that we have there, and they're like, yeah, we had no power, and we only have a few hours of power a day. And not just like today, I was talking to some friends, and like, they're happy with 4 hours of power, 4 hours of electricity a day, and it's cold, and it's so useless. It's a spiritual war. So, the Lord's just got his heart there to where we are partnering with other churches, and we're trying to help, through donations. We're trying to help through, whatever we can, whatever sacrifice we can.
You hear everything's so politicized about Ukraine, you know what I mean? And you hear like the right side say, certain things, and the left side say certain things, but it almost just feels like, dude, everybody's lying, you know?
They are.
But the curiosity that I have is, okay, you're a guy with no, political gain for one thing or another, and you actually have direct contact with people in Ukraine.
Yeah.
What is life like for the people in Ukraine?
It's uncertain. It's uncertain. They don't know, you know what I mean? They don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. They're waiting. They're waiting in hope. I went down there twice last year. There's some youth conferences that we went to that we helped out at, and we mentored and we talked.
Ukraine?
In Ukraine, yeah.
So is the whole thing a war zone, or is there just
No,
fighting
it
happening?
was around Kyiv and Lviv. You can see, there were drones, they were under attack while we were there. People are just kind of refuse to live in fear.
Oh, wow.
They're very, very, they don't want to, if there's an attack and there's something destroyed, they instantly address it, fix it up, take it out, fence it up, board it up. So when people, because, they can be a lot of people on foot with bikes, they don't want to look at that, they don't want to see that. So they're, the war's been going on for a long minute, so a lot of things have been rebuilding,
Right.
But it was just a cold winter, and I encourage everybody, like, just do a little bit of homework, right? What we're seeing there is, right, you have people that it's, they are mandated to go to war, the men there are, either you serve once or you have to go. If you haven't served, you have to, and they're stopping men off the road. They're looking at their paperwork. And if you have not served, that's it. Go say goodbye to your family. And a lot of times they don't even let them, you are coming straight, and they put them on the front line, right? So what does that do? That causes a group of men that don't, because you have some that don't want to fight. They're just like, it's not for me. So they're not coming out of their house. If they're not coming out of their house, they're not going to work. If they're not going out to work, they're not tithing into the church. And if money's not coming into the church, what's happening in an area where there's no electricity, where they shut out the power, where people don't have food? Who are they going to come to? The church, right?
Right.
We are the body,
The poor, the needy, the orphans, the widows.
Like, we are not helping Congress. We're not helping Zelensky. You know what I mean? We're helping the churches, man.
Right, right.
Because that's what we were called. We are
Your
called to
money's going
stand
directly to them, yeah.
directly to them. We're partnering with them. We're helping what we can. They're the ones that need help. They're the ones that are, we're trying to stand in the gap for. It's, don't listen. Don't listen to everything you hear on the television. It's a lot of propaganda. It's a lot of just mumbo jumbo. There's a war going on there. There's people dying. There's families being torn apart. There's people being killed. It's serious. It's serious. It's serious.
So the ministry focuses on raising funds and resources
Correct.
to come alongside of the churches that are already
Correct.
there doing the work.
Yep.
Because who's going to know better the needs of the locals than the local churches who are there amongst everybody else to be able to help
Exactly.
take care of different needs?
We help churches there, and we help a few churches here because we've seen an influx of immigrants coming, right?
Right.
And if they're a lot of them that are coming, where they're seeking asylum, they're going to the church for help, for aid,
course.
right?
Of course.
So there's a big community here in Charlotte where they need help, man. They need help. So
Yeah.
we're trying, what we do, and we've seen just a severe decline in the donations all around. Samaritan's Purse, I think they're down up 60-70% down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Is it just because the news cycle, or
The news cycle, and then it really took a dive with the whole when Trump and Zelensky had their little meeting, and things were said, and
I gotcha.
it's political. The political aspect of it just stopped people from. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to.
Which sucks, because it's like those people in Ukraine are still suffering.
They are.
That conversation that was politicized and publicized, it didn't stop their suffering in any degree.
No.
The suffering is still there.
No.
Now there's just less help.
No. There's talk of peace, and we're going to give you 7 days of peace. They're not even keeping up to that bargain, to that deal. Sorry, not to that deal. I think it went like 3 days, and then attacks. But when the one thing I could say it moved me out of the youth there. Over there, it's a little different. The dynamics are a little different because you have here, parents are in church, teens are not really in church. Over there, there's a little bit of difference. You see teens in church, parents not in church, if that makes
Interesting.
sense. Yeah, it's really interesting. And they have some awesome testimonies. I'm like, tell me something that's really kept you in your faith. And they would say, we were going to go to this one place. And I told Mom, I don't think we need to go there. I feel in my spirit that the Lord doesn't want to go there. And that day there was an attack. That day something happened. That day something life-threatening took place, Yeah. And man, their faith, right? What does that do? It produces faith, right?
Yeah,
so you
absolutely.
got kids that are just on fire, and you have kids like they're seeking, they're actively like seeking and knowing and wanting, It's man, it's I don't know, it's painful. It's painful just knowing that, we have friends over there that are just no electricity in the cold. And it was a rough winter. It was a cold winter this year.
Well, if people hear about this, they want to come alongside of the ministry, we'll definitely put in the links and
awesome.
connections to
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
We'll also connect people to you, so that way if they can just reach out to you directly.
Yes.
That'd be excellent.
Yes.
And a lot of suffering in the world, a lot of need
There is.
for ministry,
There is.
and for people to stand in the gap. So God bless you guys for that.
There's no nationality, right? When God says, calls us, hey, stand in the gap and, be mourn with those that mourn,
Right,
cry with
right.
those that cry. He's not saying with just this group, with that group, like we are the body, right? What does that look like? We are helping everybody.
Yeah, when one suffers, we should all be
We
suffering.
all, that's what it comes down to, So man, so prayers are highly encouraged. So keep us in your prayers, and that the Lord just does something. They feel something's happening. They feel they're hopeful. They're hopeful that something's going to take place, and they're hanging on.
Yeah.
They're hanging on.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thanks for sharing. Vino, it's been really cool hearing your testimony, man.
Thank you.
It's been cool
Thanks
recording
so
together.
much.
It's
Oh man,
great getting to know
blasted.
one another.
Yeah. When you meet somebody, you're like, man, you instantly become buddies, friends.
That's how I feel.
Oh man,
Exactly.
awesome, man. Long time. I'm glad that this came to pass.
Yeah.
Man. Thank you so much for having me, man. It was a joy, an honor, and a blessing. You don't even know.
No,
You
it's
don't even
been
know.
really cool, man. Same.
Thanks.
Feel the exact same way. And I look forward to getting together and
Yes.
chatting more. And I'm going to
Yes.
definitely pick your brain about a couple more things.
Yes, we'll do it.
That's great. And for
We'll
those
do
of
it.
you guys that tuned in, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next week. Thanks and God bless.
Okay.